$3,000 a month, 7 animals, 0 land. And every single one of them keeps printing cash in the dead of winter, while the rest of the country's backyard income is frozen solid. Here is what almost nobody tells you before they hand over their money at the feed store. The biggest weakness in nearly every backyard income animal is not the animal. It is the calendar. The laying hens slow to a trickle the moment the daylight drops below 12 hours. The pasture dies. The farmer's market locks its gates for the season. The meat birds cannot be raised or processed in the cold. From November to March, most outdoor operations do not run a business at all. They run a feed bill with nothing coming back the other way. The 7 animals in this video do the exact opposite. Every one of them lives indoors, in a closet, a spare bedroom, a heated tank, or a single shelf against a wall. Not one of them needs a yard, a barn, or 1 square foot of frozen ground. And several of them quietly earn more in January than they do in July, because the buyers who feed them do not care what the weather is doing outside. One of these 7 sells a single starter culture, something small enough to sit in the palm of your hand, for up to $200 in the middle of winter, off a shelf that costs almost nothing to keep warm. That one is number 1, and it is the reason this entire system keeps running when everything else has shut down for the year. Here is what all 7 share. Not one of them is classified as livestock under federal law. Several carry classifications that place them completely outside the zoning codes, the HOA rules, and the municipal livestock ordinances that kill most backyard income ideas before the first dollar ever arrives. That legal gap is not a loophole you have to argue. It is a documented federal classification your city council does not have the authority to override. Every figure in this video is attached to a named operator in a named state with a verified monthly gross. This is not projection. This is documentation. Coturnix quail, mealworms, dubia roaches, crickets, ornamental shrimp, worm castings, and isopods. 7 systems, every one of them indoor, every one of them winter-proof. The animals come first. The stacking system that makes them feed each other comes at the end. Number 7. Coturnix quail. If you live somewhere that bans chickens and your neighbor's hens have stopped laying for the winter, this is the bird that ignores both problems at once. Under federal law, Coturnix are classified as a game bird, not poultry and not livestock. The suburban zoning codes that restrict chickens were written about chickens. They do not mention game birds, and that gap is wide enough to run a real operation through. Here is the winter part most people miss. A laying hen needs about 14 hours of light to keep producing, and in December she simply does not get it, so backyard egg supply collapses right when prices climb. Quail do not care. A single 60-watt bulb on a timer inside a heated room gives them all the light they need, and a Coturnix hen keeps laying straight through the shortest, coldest days of the year. While every outdoor egg seller within 30 miles has gone quiet until spring, you are the only one with a fresh supply. An operator in Michigan runs 150 birds on a stacked cage rack in 12 square feet of a heated garage corner. 12 square feet, less than the footprint of a dining table. Monthly gross, $750 to $1,100. Monthly feed cost, $45. The income runs across 3 product lines from the same cage. Eating eggs at $6 a dozen, that is the floor. Hatching eggs from the exact same birds at $12 to $24 a dozen. Live chicks at $3 to $5 each. The Michigan operator leads with hatching eggs and doubles his gross without adding a single bird or a single dollar of feed. First income arrives at 6 weeks. Startup runs $150 to $300. The biggest mistake is selling only eating eggs at commodity prices, when hatching eggs from the same hens bring 4 times the money for the same work. The next animal turns a $30 space heater into the cheapest insurance policy in this entire video. Number 6. Mealworms. 22 stacked bins in a spare bedroom, $1,000 a month, 20 minutes of work a day. A seller in Knoxville, Tennessee runs exactly that. Monthly gross, $1,100. Monthly material cost, $60. No livestock classification, no zoning restriction, legal in every apartment in the country, including the buildings with the strictest no pet rules, because a mealworm is not a pet, and it is not livestock. It occupies a regulatory category almost nothing else ever reaches. It is completely unclassified by any government body. The winter angle here cuts two ways. First, the cold is your moat. Mealworm reproduction stops dead below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which means anyone trying to run a colony in an unheated garage gets nothing from November to March. A single $30 space heater on a thermostat in a closet keeps your colony breeding through the entire winter while the competition stalls out. That little heater is protecting a four-figure monthly income. Skipping it is the single biggest mistake people make with this animal. Second, winter is when one of your buyers gets desperate. Dried mealworms are the premium suet and bird feeder protein that backyard bird enthusiasts pour out by the scoopful in cold weather, when wild food is scarce and feeder traffic triples. Live worms sell at $5 to $12 per hundred to reptile keepers and bait shops. Dried worms sell at $15 to $25 a pound to the bird feeder crowd and to chicken keepers topping up winter protein. Frass, the fine castings left in the bin, sells at $2 to $4 a pound to gardeners. Startup is $40 to $80 for cultures, bins, and bedding. First sellable product at 60 days. And after that, the colony restocks itself for free. The Knoxville seller has not bought a new starter culture in 3 years. The next animal cannot survive a single night outdoors in most of this country, and that is precisely why it has a clean regulatory record and a standing winter order waiting. Number 5. Dubia roaches. 3 plastic totes on a shelf, $600 to $900 a month. A seller in Ohio runs that setup in a heated utility room and ships nothing, because his entire output is bought every month by 2 local exotic pet stores on a standing purchase order. Monthly gross, $600 to $900. Monthly feed cost, $20 of dry dog food, oats, and kitchen scraps. Dubia roaches cannot survive outdoors in most of the United States. They need sustained temperatures above 70 degrees to reproduce, which means in winter they are physically incapable of establishing anywhere outside a heated room. That biological fact is exactly why their regulatory status is clean. No invasive pest classification, no livestock classification, no permits in most states. The cold that shuts down outdoor operations is the same cold that makes this animal legal. And the demand does not blink in winter. The buyer pool is the reptile hobby, and reptiles eat all year round. Bearded dragons, leopard geckos, chameleons, and skinks all need live feeder insects as their primary food, and their keepers are indoors all winter staring at the tank, ordering feeders. Dubia beat crickets on every measure that matters to a pet store. 22% more protein, no noise, no odor on dry substrate, and they cannot climb smooth plastic, so they never escape. Stores prefer them for that reason alone, and they struggle to find a reliable local supplier, which is the exact gap you walk into. Startup is $100 to $120 for adult breeding stock and totes. The biggest mistake is buying young nymphs to save money because they take 6 to 12 months to reach breeding age. Buy adults and you have income in month 1. One warning: dubia are illegal in Florida and a handful of other warm states where they could survive outside, so confirm your state first. The next animal turns 2 cents of live insect into $45 a pound human food. Number 4. Crickets. A live cricket sells for about 2 cents. Dry it, mill it, and the same insect becomes cricket flour at $30 to $45 a pound, sold to the protein bar and supplement makers who cannot get enough sustainable protein. An operator in Texas runs 6 breeding bins in a spare room and pulls over 20 pounds of flour a month.
The volume is the whole game, because flour turns a feeder insect into premium human food at 20 times the price per pound. The winter logic is simple. Crickets are an indoor, climate-controlled animal from the start, so the season that wipes out pasture and shuts down markets has no effect on them at all. A heated bin in February produces exactly what it produces in July. And while outdoor producers have nothing to sell, your supplement buyers are still placing their monthly orders because protein demand runs on the calendar of the gym and the health food aisle, not the weather. The income runs on two lines.
Cricket flour wholesale to supplement and protein bar brands at $30 to $45 a pound, sometimes higher for organic certification. And live feeders, sold by the thousand to reptile stores at a few cents each, which, on its own, covers the entire feed bill. Acheta domesticus doubles its population about every 30 days, so the colony scales by adding bins, not space. Startup runs a few $100s for bins, egg flat hides, a dehydrator, and a small grinder. Daily time is under half an hour. The biggest mistake is selling only live feeders at 2 cents apiece and never touching the dehydrator, because the flour is where 20 times the value lives. The limiting factor is never the crickets. It is how fast you can dry and mill them. The next animal sits on a shelf in a tank smaller than a microwave, and the difference between the $3 version and the $40 version is 3 generations of one breeding decision. Number 3. Ornamental shrimp. A plain cherry shrimp sells for $2 or $3. The exact same animal, in the exact same tank, on the exact same feed, but selectively bred for color over 3 generations, sells for $25 to $40 each. The infrastructure does not change. The breeding program is the product. This is the one most people rewind. A breeder in Ohio started with 6 cherry shrimp in a tank on his dresser. 18 months later, he runs 14 heated nanotanks producing orange, blue, and chocolate strains, grossing around $1,800 a month from about 3 feet of shelf space. Every tank is heated to a steady 72 degrees, which is the winter point most beginners miss. Tropical shrimp need warmth, and a small aquarium heater holds that temperature whether it is 90 outside or 9 below. The cold simply does not enter the system. And here is the winter buyer. The aquarium hobby peaks in the cold months. When it is dark and freezing outside, people stay in and pour money into the tank in the living room, and they ship livestock to each other nationwide in insulated heat pack boxes all winter long. A frozen January is the aquascaper's high season. Startup is around $130 for a tank, sponge filter, heater, a starter colony, and a test kit. Each selectively bred female drops 25 to 35 babies every month, and the population doubles roughly every 90 days with proper culling. The biggest mistake is breeding wild-type shrimp, which saturate the market at $2 or $3. The color morphs command 10 to 15 times that, and serious hobbyists pay for documented genetics. The real product is not the shrimp, it is the breeding line, and the operators who document their lineage build waiting lists. The next animal generates income from something you would otherwise pay to throw away. Number 2. Worm castings. This is the only entry on the list that is not really sold as an animal at all. It is sold as what the animal leaves behind. Red wriggler worms eat kitchen scraps and organic waste in a stack of bins in a basement or a closet, and they turn it into vermicompost, the premium worm castings that serious gardeners, turf managers, and indoor growers pay a fortune for. Bulk wholesale castings run $35 to $50 per cubic foot. Retail bags run $2 to $5 a pound. Live worms themselves sell at $30 to $50 a pound to other people starting their own bins. A Texas operation processes thousands of pounds of vermicompost a month, and a small operator in a spare room can clear $2,000 to $5,000 selling premium castings and a liquid extract that growers pour onto everything from cannabis to golf greens. Worms are not livestock. There is no veterinary jurisdiction, no slaughter facility, no processing permit, no zoning class. There is nothing to register. Now the winter angle, and it is the best one on this list. Winter is planting season for every gardener in the country. They are sitting indoors with seed catalogs, building their spring beds on paper, and stocking up on the soil amendments they will need the moment the ground thaws. Demand for premium castings climbs through the cold months, while the gardeners themselves are doing nothing in the dirt. You are selling them spring, in January, from a heated bin that never stops working. The bins also hold their own temperature easily indoors, so production never dips. Startup is $500 to $2,000. The biggest mistake is trying to compete on bulk price against the giant casting operations. You cannot win there. The path to real money is premium positioning, documented quality, and the liquid extract that sells for 4 to 8 times the price per pound. The next animal is the reason this entire video exists, and it earns its #1 spot from a closet smaller than a linen cupboard. Number 1. Isopods. A seller in Austin, Texas runs 30 cultures in a space that fits entirely inside a single closet. Monthly gross, $1,400 to $2,000. Monthly operating cost, under $40. Feed cost, $0. Isopods eat decaying leaf litter you can collect free from any yard, any park, or any pile of fallen leaves, and in winter, you can gather a year's worth in an afternoon of raking. The income runs across 3 tiers based on rarity and documented genetics. Standard varieties at $10 to $20 a culture, mid-tier morphs like blue velvet and orange at $30 to $60, and the premium color morphs, the ones serious terrarium hobbyists build waiting lists for, at $80 to $200 per culture of 10 or 15 tiny animals the size of a dime. That is the single starter culture I mentioned at the very start, small enough to hold in your palm and worth $200 in the dead of winter. Here is why winter is the right time to start. Isopods are the cleanup crew of the bioactive reptile hobby, and that hobby lives indoors. Every winter, a new wave of keepers sets up a bioactive enclosure to get through the cold months, and every one of those builds needs isopods, permanently, not as a one-time purchase. The demand is structural, it is growing, and it does not slow down for the season. The regulatory status is clean. They are classified as beneficial crustaceans, with no livestock or pest category anywhere, and no permits to keep or sell domestic cultures. Startup is $100 to $350 for 10 to 15 cultures, containers, and substrate. The biggest mistake is overwatering. Isopods need a moisture gradient, one wet end and one dry end, and uniform moisture grows a mold bloom that wipes out an entire culture in 48 hours. And here is the quality that makes this animal #1. It is the only one on this list where getting better at the hobby directly raises what each unit sells for. As your knowledge of the genetics grows, your inventory grows in value with no extra equipment and no extra space. That is rare in any income system, and in winter, when nothing else is producing, it is worth a great deal. Now here is where these 7 stop being 7 separate side hustles and become one machine. The Michigan quail produce manure and spilled feed. That waste goes straight into the mealworm and dubia bins as bedding and food at 0 cost. The mealworm and dubia colonies, fed partly on that waste, produce live insects that go right back into the quail cage as a high-protein supplement, cutting the $45 feed bill by 1/4 to 1/3. The frass from the mealworm bins, more than your local gardeners can absorb, becomes a feed top-up for the quail and an amendment for the worm bins. The dubia colony's spent substrate is ideal bedding for the isopods, which means the $40 monthly cost in the Austin closet drops close to 0 once a roach operation runs alongside it. The worm bins process the organic output from every other animal and turn it into castings worth real money, while the cricket operation runs alongside on the same shelf, sharing the same heated room, the same thermostat, the same electricity bill. One heater warms the whole stack. The shrimp tanks throw off nutrient-rich water that feeds a few houseplants or a small grow shelf, and the cold air outside never touches any of it. Combined gross from all 7 at a sensible mid-range scale runs $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Combined feed and material cost, after the waste loops back on itself, runs under $150. Net, somewhere between $2,800 and $3,500 a month, from a closet, a spare bedroom, a couple of heated shelves, and a single warm room. No farm, no barn, no acre. And not a single day of it shuts down for winter, because winter never gets in the door. The compounding only works when each layer is profitable before you add the next one. One gear at a time builds a machine. Everything at once builds a crisis. So here is the order. Start with isopods. Under $350, zero feed cost, first cultures ready to sell in about 60 days, 5 minutes of care a day, and the only starter on this list whose inventory grows in value as you learn. You can set it up this weekend, in the warmest closet in the house, and have cultures listed before the snow melts. Once the isopods are producing, add Dubia roaches. Your spent isopod substrate becomes Dubia bedding at no cost, and your first sale is a sample container walked into a local exotic pet store with 30 days of free supply to prove the relationship. That standing order funds the next step. Third, add mealworms. Your Dubia and quail become your first mealworm customers. Your feed cost drops the moment the colony comes online, and the cheap heater you are already running for the Dubia keeps the worms breeding through the winter. From there, layer in crickets on the same shelf, then the shrimp tanks, then the worm bins to close the waste loop, and finally the quail once you are ready to manage an animal that needs daily attention. Each layer makes the one before it cheaper to run. That is not a theory. That is the waste loop working exactly as it should. So tell me in the comments, what does your winter actually look like? A heated closet? A spare bedroom? A corner of the garage with a space heater? Or a whole basement waiting to be put to work? Every situation has a different first move, and I read every comment. And if a single number in this video was one you could not find anywhere else, subscribe and turn on the bell, because the next video builds the exact 60-day winter launch sequence for the first 3 animals, step by step, from empty shelf to first sale. That one is already in production. I will see you there.